Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of things that I have seen people do that are perhaps a little bit unfair. Some of these things I don't actually really have much of an issue with, but I have seen other people take issue with. Some of them I have mild opinions on, and then some of them I have quite strong opinions on, and I really want to know your thoughts on all of these things. I'm going to say the ones that I have the strongest feelings toward for the end, and I'm going to start with the ones that are a little bit more mild. All of these essentially have to do with how we go about rating and reviewing books, and the first one would be the fact that sometimes we rate sequels lower because we forgot what happened in previous books. I think it's obviously fair to say when you're discussing a book, I read this and honestly I totally forgot what happened in the previous books. I waited too long. It took a long time before the book finally came out and I don't remember anything. That's fair. But if you don't remember something and then you punish the book for that, I don't know. I kind of think it's a little bit unfair. This is one that I'm somewhere in the middle with my feelings toward, because to some degree, a lot of times when you pick up a sequel, I'm not saying you need a formal previously on section at the beginning of a book, but also I do think that there's some means of incorporating previous information, because it's only fair to expect readers to forget certain things. Even if you read a book from one to the next, those little reminders of the details are kind of like, here's what's important that you probably want to remember for this book. This can of course also be very annoying to some readers though, to have those reminders, especially if you're somebody who waits until all of the books are out and then you marathon. Then you gotta read through all of those details because everybody else chooses to wait a really long time before they pick up the books. So I understand why it's a tricky situation for the author to figure out the exact right balance of what is too much, what is too little in the way of reminding readers of what happened before. But I just don't know if I think it's fair to go beyond that and just say, like, I totally forgot everything from book one, and then I read the second book, and I don't know, I don't even remember what's happening. I don't know who's who. I don't know why any of this is important. So 2 stars. And I don't think I love that. The next one would be when we have half-star ratings based off of our own personal rating scales, and then we choose to rate down instead of up. Obviously, the difference from 3.5 to 4 and 3.5 to 3, it's the same distance between those two, and if you really are truly right in the middle, I feel like it kind of sucks for authors when I feel like instinctively bump down. Maybe I'm incorrect about that, but I feel like the majority of the people who rate things on Goodreads, since Goodreads doesn't allow half stars, the majority of the time they bump it down. And it could be that in your more specific rating scale that you have for yourself, that you actually are closer to that lower, but just for the ease of everybody else, you're just like half star added on. But I don't know. I just feel like, why not bump it up? You know, if you truly are right in the middle of those 2 stars, why lean negative instead of positive? The next one is one that I know a lot of you are going to have strong opinions on, and that's when people rate books before they're out. I think it's fair to say that a lot of people, I mean, generally speaking, if people are hyping up a book and they're super excited, they love previous books by the author, and they just instinctively are like 5 star, that a lot of us don't really care. But it's when you give a book 1 star and it's not out and you haven't read it, you don't have access to an arc, that we're like, hey now, really though? To be perfectly honest, I don't really pay that much attention to Goodreads ratings because a lot of the books that I think are amazing are not nearly as high in average rating as books that I think are just popular. So I don't give that much weight to average ratings, but it's still kind of a giant middle finger to an author. I'll add though that in having fake 5-star ratings, that sometimes leads people to be like, well, what the heck, this book's not even out yet. Sometimes it's a debut author and people are just like, they don't deserve to have these high ratings before the book's even out. And then that leads people to rate it 1 star. Then it just turns into this back and forth of, well, they're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Well, if they're doing it, I'm gonna do it. And it's like, why don't you just read the book when it comes out and then rate it? I don't know. The next one on this list is one that I don't know how I feel. I can kind of understand, but at the same time, sort of not. So that would be when people kind of retroactively rate things because of their feelings for the newest book or the book that they're on currently in a series. So I get if I get if you read something and you're like, oh my gosh, that blew my mind. That totally changes how I see the previous books because now I'm realizing all of that stuff that was happening was building to this moment. And so this moment couldn't have happened if this moment over here wasn't done the way it was done. And everybody's allowed their own personal feelings. And I understand even on the negative end of something where you're like, okay, you built all of this up and for what? For nothing. So now that other stuff that I was forced to read, not forced, you know what I'm saying. All the other stuff that I read through was pointless because it didn't go anywhere. Why? Why did I end up having to read all of that? What was the point? And so I kind of get that also. I sort of get it. But on the flip side, I also feel like when you rate a book or when any of us express our feelings for a book, it's very much rooted in how we feel about the book in that moment, in that time. Some people sit on it for a little bit. Some people think and they're like, I'm going to wait before I really decide. Sometimes when you first get done, you need time to process your thoughts. But ultimately, there's a time frame of your emotions. And then after that, other things can affect that. And it could be the fact that you've gotten older and you like different things now. It could be that other people are influencing your thoughts because of them expressing their thoughts. And I don't know, if we are paying that close attention as we're going through life to what we rated a book in the past, then at some point I'm like, well, then we would constantly be changing our ratings. Is there any book that when you go back and reread it, you have the exact same experience with? Probably not. I mean, I feel like a good example are thrillers. Once you know the twist, you know the twist. And maybe there are some thrillers that you can go back through and then it's really fun to see all of the hints along the way. But then there are some books that rely on that twist. And if you know it, then it's like, well, if you were to go back and reread it, you're like, well, I know the twist, so the rest of this isn't exciting. I don't know if I'm even making sense. I'm probably overthinking this one, but I'm in the middle on this, and I'm very curious your thoughts. Next one is one I know a lot of you are going to feel very strongly about, and please feel free to express your opinions on this. That would be rating DNFs. So I think that this one is tricky because there have definitely been times where I've picked up a book, I've read a fair amount, and I'm like, no. And it's not a matter of, well, you just have to keep going because your mind, it will probably change. There are some books that I pick up, and in my own personal opinion, how I enjoy books, I'm like, this one's not for me. I think it's smelly, hot garbage. And I just know, no amount of reading further is going to make me like the book more. Because I think it's smelly, hot garbage. And so in that situation, I'm like, well, in my brain, this is a 1 star. This is a terrible book. Now, I don't publicly rate books. Anyway, I have my own thoughts as to how I feel about books sometimes, but I'm not declaring my star ratings. So I feel like, for me, in my head, I rate DNFs in my brain, but I feel like it's not fair because I'm basically like, well, I don't even rate books, so I don't have to decide on this. That's kind of the thing. I don't have to decide on this. So it's just me passing judgment on other people, and I would feel bad doing that because I definitely feel like in my brain there are some books that are terrible, and I think that if there was a 0 star available, I would give it 0 stars. But on the flip side, there have been times where it doesn't seem like the person thinks that the book itself, the writing, the pacing, the characters, it doesn't seem like they have an issue with those things. It seems like certain things are going a certain way, and they're like, this is stupid, I don't like this. And if they just kept reading, they would realize, well, it's purposeful. It's like that for a reason, so that you can see later on that it's not actually that way. And in that case, I do get a little frustrated. And to pick on myself, what I was saying about the fact that I rate them in my head, sometimes there's a time limit almost, or I should say a page count amount that is going to be different for everybody. There's this 1-star review for Mistborn that said they DNF'd it at 3 pages, and I'm like, 3 pages, sir or madam, I don't know. But I'm just thinking, 3 pages? 3 pages? But I don't know. There have been other books that after 20 or so pages, I'm like, this isn't it. This isn't good. So then if you do feel like it's okay because of the thing I stated initially, that sometimes you can just tell this isn't going to be for you, where's the line? How many pages? How many words are you supposed to read? How many chapters? What if it's a multiple point of view story and you've read one point of view and the author intentionally writes certain characters with different writing styles? So the first character you interact with, you're like, this person's dumb. and then you think, I don't want to keep reading this, but what if the next person's really charming and charismatic and you would love them? So I don't know. I go back and forth on this one, but maybe some of you can persuade me to your feelings. Now to the two that I think I feel the strongest toward. The first one, I'm pretty sure all of us think this is pretty ridiculous, but if you can convince me, maybe there's a side of this I haven't looked at, I would love to hear it or read it. But either way, it's when people rate books very low because they haven't read the previous books. So you pick up book 3 in a series and you're thinking, this book was really bad. I had no idea what was going on. I know it's book 3, but I should be given enough information where I can read this book on its own. No, that is not how it works. That's not how it works at all. There are some books, there are some series that's the case where you can just kind of pick up any of them and chronological order doesn't really matter. There are some series like that. There are some series that are not like that. And if you are going into a series, I feel like the least you can do is find out if the series that you're going into, if it's a series that you can do that with. And if you can't do that with it, then no. I wouldn't ever go watch the last 20 minutes of a movie and then be like, well, this was dumb. And it's like, well, how? Well, I didn't even feel anything when this person died. Well, that's because you didn't spend all this time with them. It doesn't make any sense. I don't feel like I really need to spend that much time on this. It doesn't make sense to me. Again, if you guys have a reason that this actually makes perfect sense, I'd love to know. This last one, I don't think as many other people feel as strongly as I do. Take a shot every time I've said strong or strongly in this video. Apologies. But I'm going to be honest, I really don't like when people rate a book low because they didn't like the audiobook. I don't know how much control the authors have for who narrates their book. And if you truly are like, I hated the narrator, I hated the voices they gave all the characters, if you just totally hate a narrator, stop listening to the audiobook. Now, there are times that I completely understand. There are some individuals who they can't, for whatever reason, they can't read a book physically, digitally, whatever the case may be, and they can only listen to audiobooks. And I think that there's an exception with that, of course, because that's the only way of being able to experience the story. But for most people, I don't know. I don't think it's very fair. We almost need a separate area on Goodreads for here's our rating of the book, here's the rating of the audiobook. Maybe that's really mean though. Is that really mean because it's a literal person's voice? I don't think so. It's their job, it's a performance, and it's a form of art. I would love to see all of your thoughts on all of these, but anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.